Hi, and welcome to the Millbury School Committee meeting of Thursday, November 19th, 2015. If you could please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so before we start, I think the committee, I'll speak for them, would like to extend their congratulations to the Millbury girls soccer, and we wish you the best of luck on Saturday. So now we'll start with the review and approval of the regular session minutes for October 28th.
Moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
That's 5-0. And now the approval of the executive session minutes for October 28th. If there's any corrections, additions, deletions, we'll take that up in executive session.
Moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
That's 5-0. Okay, now we'll move on to the report of the administration. Mr. Myers.
Madam Chair, thank you very much. I just would like to begin my report tonight by building on how you opened the meeting and by commending not just the girls soccer team, but all of our fall teams that had a phenomenal season, starting with the girls volleyball team and their coach, Mike McEwen. They qualified for the Central Mass Districts with a 12-8 record, beat Blackstone Valley Tech in the first round, but lost to Bethany Christian in the quarterfinals. And ultimately, Sutton was the district champs, and they lost just last night, I think, to Linfield in the semifinals. For cross country, their coach, Mike DeGangi, led both the boys and girls teams. Vinny DiDomenica stood out as he came in number 29 out of 205 runners in the Central Mass District cross-country race, which is phenomenal. And his sister, Angie, came in 9th out of 163 girls and qualified for states. That's incredible. That's no small feat. The girls' team finished 13 out of 22, and the boys' team finished 22nd out of 30. So Angie's going to be racing in Westfield on Saturday, right about when the girls will be kicking off. So we wish her the best of luck. Boys soccer also had a remarkable season. Brian Genesi is the coach, also a Millbury alum. The boys went on to an 11-6-1 season and then defeated Clinton in the first round and shut out the second-seeded team Grafton in the quarterfinals before losing to Nipmuc in double overtime. They had a phenomenal season. And, of course, as you know, the reason why we're having a Thursday night meeting is because I think no one would have showed up last night. They were all at the girls' game. So the girls who are seeded number 1 with a 16-0-2 record, phenomenal season, shut out Auburn in the quarterfinals, Northbridge in the semifinals, and shut out BVT to win the districts last Saturday. And as you know, last night the girls shut out Granby High School, who was the Western Mass Division champion, undefeated Granby. They now have a loss on their record. And they're advancing to the state finals, which will be this Saturday at 10 in the morning at Milford High School. And if I could just point out that the girls have outscored their opponents in districts 14-0. They have yet to give up a goal, and that's phenomenal. That's tremendous. So I know that we'll all be out there to support the girls and Angie on Saturday, and I know there's a fan bus available for kids for $5 a head. They can sign up in the office. A few items on our agenda have been moved to December, and I just want to let you know that there are several students who are going to be recognized in December, and they will be here with us for that meeting. But for now, we do have the results of our Park and MCAS assessment, along with a PD update from our Director of Curriculum, Instruction, and Assessment. This is Jennifer Belleville. So I'd like to invite Mrs. Belleville to the podium.
As for professional development for the district, we had 2 professional development full days up to this point, one in October. The big initiative in the district at that point was empowering writers. So all teachers, grades 2 through 8 were trained in empowering writers, and that we talked about as part of the big district literacy team initiative. Also at the high school, there was a lot of curriculum work going on with Miss Bennett, a lot of talk about program of studies as well. Ms. Ryan did restraint training regarding new regulations, and Mr. Hall worked with kindergarten and first grade regarding just updating their curriculum as well and how they're implementing the writing program because their writing training was in June of last year. For November, the entire junior, senior high staff, including instructional assistants, were able to see John Safier. Dr. Safier is well-renowned. He's the CEO of Teachers 21. He did a phenomenal presentation on high expectations teaching and then met with all department heads after to really talk about what work he brought to the table and how the department heads are then going to move that forward in their departments. And then Ms. Friedman and Mr. Hall ran building-based professional development to work on the initiatives, whether it be safety. I know Mr. Hall ran scenarios for Alice training all afternoon. He did social thinking in the morning. And Ms. Friedman worked on data and empowering writers as well. We will then have a half day in December where we're working on curriculum mapping. We also have WPI coming in for next generation science standards. And we will be doing a menu option in January for our next full PD day. So I know teachers are really excited about that. So, any questions on professional development? Perfect. Oh, sorry. She's blinded by the light, literally.
We're going to do that.
So the long-awaited MCAS Park scores for 2015. So this will be a very interesting presentation as traditionally we've been able to do a lot of comparison with MCAS, and then last year we had students in grades 3 through 8 take the Park test. So just so that everybody's aware, in grades 3 through 6, our students took paper-based testing. And then in grades 7 and 8, they took it on the computer. Grade 10, ELA and math still takes MCAS as their competency determination for their high school diploma. And then all students in grade 5, 8, and then depending on where you are in the science curriculum, in either 9 and 10, you take the science and technology MCAS. So our students were tested last year. So in really looking kind of at what this data tells us, it really talks about what we need to consider as far as adjusting our practice as teachers. It's really one snapshot in time, as well as we look at the comparisons not only amongst our grade levels, but across grade levels, and then with others across the state who are similar to us, as well as the state average. What it doesn't tell us are probably the most important things. It doesn't tell us real-time data. So our students took the Park last March, and then they took it again in May, and we just got the results maybe 4 weeks ago. So, and we're not even getting itemized results this year. So it really doesn't tell us kind of the complete picture behind those numbers. This year, Park is not releasing an item analysis either, so I have a big picture of what a grade level looks like. But as far as being able to compare individual student data, we are not able to do that at this time, which is very different than what we've been able to do with our MCAS data in the past. And then there is what is the future of assessment and comparison data across the state of Massachusetts, because as you will hear later in my presentation, that's changing significantly. So I always start with MCAS. And we traditionally have looked at Millbury versus the state. So the only thing I could really look at this year was the science MCAS. And looking at all of our students in grades 5, 8, 9, and 10, we have traditionally done very well compared to the state. So as you see, we have 63 advanced or proficient compared to the state's 54. But across the board, especially in 5th grade, we've always done extremely well for advanced and proficient. So our 5th grade science continues to have steady progress in advanced and proficient, but we did see a dip this past year. And I do want to remind everybody at the time of science testing, our students had taken March ELA and Math Park, as well as May ELA and Math Park. So they had already had 9 testing days before they even embarked on their 5th grade science. And traditionally, they would have had 2 days of testing before their science, and they had 5 days. So I just feel that really kind of impacted our 5th grade science scores, as well as the preparation that the teachers had for science. For our junior, senior high school, we are really looking at this as the state is looking to adopt the next generation science standards. There'll be significant changes amongst various grade levels. We do have WPI coming to work with teachers in grades 6 through 12 in our December PD Day to really talk about what the standards are going to do for our curriculum, how we're going to need to realign at some grade levels, as well as the district has a literacy committee. We're creating a STEAM committee that's really going to look at science and technology from pre-K through grade 12. So for English Language Arts for grade 10, our students need to take this and pass with at least a needs improvement to get their high school diploma. We did see an increase in needs improvement and warning. This is our higher needs population. We did have a larger population of special ed students in this class. We had students retake ELA and math recently on November 4th through 10th at the high school, and so we're awaiting those results. If they do not pass at that point, they will have another opportunity in the spring to retake that test. The math number is a little bit more stagnant as far as if you really look at kind of that needs improvement warning, 21, 20%, and then it's still 19. It's just the majority shifted into the warning portion, and that really was a large portion of special ed students. So Ms. Ryan and I are really talking about what can we do to put in for supports for that population at our high school level. Moving on to Park. So very difficult to read, but this is kind of what a sample parent report is going to look like. So a few things to note. Unlike MCAS, where level 1 is the best of the best for MCAS, level 1 is the worst of the worst for Park. So the state really wants to confuse us as far as our levels. Level 1 is that a student does not meet expectations at all. Level 2 is they partially meet expectations. Level 3 is they approached the expectation. Level 4 is they met the expectation. And level 5 is they exceeded the expectation. So comparatively, when I'm looking at it and when we're really talking to teachers, we're looking at level 4 and 5 as kind of equivalent to proficient and advanced in MCAS. Level 3 is our needs improvement, and level 2 and 1 as our warning. Parents will be receiving a breakdown as far as reading and writing, which is nice to note as well. So all of our students in grades 3 through 8 took Park. One of the things that I do want to note is the state average for grades 3 through 8 for ELA. 60% of the state was proficient at levels 4 and 5, and 40% was not at levels 1 through 3. So when we kind of compare ourselves to the state average, we are doing the same or if not better in just about all circumstances when it comes to state average for ELA. There's 2 things I really want to note for especially 3rd grade, because MCAS scores for 3rd grade have always been fantastic and we've always had a large population of advanced students. However, MCAS was reading. There was no writing component. Park, 3rd grade had a writing component where students were asked to read and analyze text and write about it. So by throwing in that writing component, we did see a significant decrease in that. As well as, I would tell you the Park results probably are a little bit more of what a 3rd grader is. And the reason I say that is because 3rd grade is really that year where you shift from learning to read to reading to learn. And so to have such a large portion of students exceeding that at 3rd grade was always kind of, we questioned that because then we saw a significant dip later on at different grade levels. So we do feel that that test is a little bit more accurate at the Park level. For 3rd grade math, the state average was 52% proficient at levels 4 and 5, and 48% proficient at levels 1 through, not proficient at levels 1 through 3. The state was extremely disappointed in its math scores across the board because they did very poorly for math. Scores are very similar for third grade as to ELA. Before we go on, though, I want to note that level 3, because you're going to see that level 3 kind of across the board in every single grade. And that's really our needs improvement. And really delving deeper into what level 3 was, we noted that a lot of our level 3 students were our high needs population. So our Title I students, our low income students, or our special ed students. So that's really an area that we need to target. And I know we've already started to target that with how we've changed the utilization of our Title I grant this year. We added additional staff both at Shaw and Elmwood, as well as using that funding, we're adding an after school opportunity for tutoring for our junior high students starting at the end of January. So we're hoping to see that that will make an impact on that level 3. For grade 4, I must just say I wish the 4th grade teachers were here so we could cheer them on, because the number of years I've sat and watched them in the audience as they've cried over their 4th grade results, because we have always traditionally struggled in 4th grade. And there was a reason for that, and it was the long composition. For whatever reason, the state does long comp at grades 4 through 8, and so you're comparing apples and oranges when you go from 3rd grade to 4th grade, then to 5th grade. We've taken out long comp, but when we took out long comp this year, the writing component didn't go away. However, it was to our advantage. We've spent a lot of years working on our open response, which is really written comprehension, written reading comprehension, and we've really focused that on for grades 3 through 8, actually all the way through grade 12. And that really paid off for us this year because our students did extremely well for 4th grade, as far as 17 and 56% at levels 4 and 5. So that's what we see, that change. And across the board in grades 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, you will see that. This was not surprising when we looked at 4th grade math, where we've traditionally done extremely well. In mathematics, we didn't do as well in mathematics this year for level 5. I think the reason for that, there's a couple reasons, but before I go on, I do want to point out, if you look at the advanced and proficient, it is roughly the same as levels 4 and 5 there. It's just we don't have as many of the level 5 students. But one of the things, and this is not a good slide, and it showed up a lot better on my computer than it does here. There's a big difference as far as the old MCAS test, where really the question was asking about counting. So it's a fraction question, and the question says, what fraction of Justine's stickers are hearts? So as a 4th grade student, I can count the number of stickers that are there, and I can count the number of hearts, and I can make a fraction. Park asked me to show my understanding of a fraction, make sense of a fraction compared to a number line, and then apply that knowledge to answer a question. So the difference between an MCAS test that our 4th graders were taking as far as is simply the content to applying that knowledge is significantly different. So grade 5, again, our results were very similar. This was expected, as I said, the district had focused on that. There is not really a true difference between our MCAS and our PARC because we didn't have long comp in 5th grade, as well as for math. So you'll see that across the board for 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. In moving to 7th grade, I do want to note that students now had to take this on a computer. And we really feel that maybe some of the dip we see is because now not only are we asking them to read, analyze, write, we're now asking them to type and use technology. So I'm not really sure we were testing the same thing for 3rd and 6th graders as we were for our 7th and 8th graders. So we did definitely see a decrease in our level 4s and level 5s. In math, we didn't see as much of a difference as far as our scores with grades 3 through 6 as we did in ELA, and I do think it has to do with the typing and writing component. In 8th grade, we saw a significant difference in our levels 4s and levels 5s. If you look at MCAS last year, was 81% of our students were proficient And this year, a level 4, there was only 44% and then 11%. So a significant difference. However, I want to talk about the sample ELA question. So on a computer, a student had to read 3 passages. So this is the question. You have read 3 passages about studies involving the behaviors of elephants. Write an essay analyzing each author's purpose in describing the studies of elephant behavior, and compare the information about the behavior of elephants each author presents in the passages. And remember to use evidence from all 3 passages to support your answer. So I'm going to be honest, I'm not sure I could do that, let alone have to go through and click on a computer, going back to each of those passages and having to scroll through those passages on a computer and then write my essay on a computer, on a screen that's 12 clicks away. They could have a piece of paper. I know that's what your question was. They could have a piece of paper where they could take their notes and if they chose to, write their essay. But if you've met a lot of those 8th graders, taking those notes, handwriting your essay, and then typing your essay, didn't happen. So, and then just to look at the math for grade 8, it was very similar across the board for what we saw for grades 3 through 6 and 7. So I did do one level of cohort data because we always talk about when we look at the grade levels, we're comparing apples to oranges because it's a different group of students each year. So I did the class of 2023, which is amazing to me, which is our current 7th grade. And in looking at these results, across the board, we see some fluctuation, but without really being able to dive into some analysis, not really sure where we're going. I do know that we are very similar to what they were last year, so I know we're making continual gains in the sense that they're gaining their grade level curriculum, but in really being able to identify what their strengths and weaknesses were this year, without item analysis, we're going to really struggle to do that. And math, we saw a significant difference as far as students really no longer meeting that proficiency. And I think that really goes back to that analysis of math skills that we're really going to have to beef up. The nice part is that the district did purchase a curriculum 2 years ago, and we just last year purchased a curriculum that mirrored that for Algebra 1 and Algebra 2. And so with that, we are really starting to analyze deeper mathematics. So what's it telling us? We're doing many things right. We're aligning our math program. Our common planning time is becoming more focused for all of our building levels. Our district literacy plan is really pushing our ELA initiatives, especially that writing component. We're doing more transition planning across all of our buildings. We have a half day scheduled at the end of the year specifically for transition planning. We are continuing the implementation of MAP testing in grades 2 through 10 and analyzing that data. We're holding benchmark meetings 3 times a year for data, as well as doing a lot of progress monitoring and our after-school programs for SES. So we implemented Elmwood last year. We ran 1 session down there. We are running 2 sessions this year. Shaw will continue to run 3 sessions, and then we're going to add a session for the junior high. And we service approximately 200 students after school between all of the buildings as far as extra academic support, and have seen a significant increase with that. As far as things that we need to continue to do, that vertical alignment piece, and we're doing that with our curriculum mapping and using Atlas Rubicon this year, and that's really what our half-day PD days starting in December will be doing. Really focusing on writing. We had empowering writers come in for our K through 8 teachers. They're coming back to do coaching and do model lessons and meet with all the grade level teachers. We're going to continue to use data to drive our instruction, really delving deeper into that data, so not just looking at surface data, but then peeling back the layers, not just for our students who are in need of improvement, but also looking at those advanced students. And we really traditionally haven't looked at those advanced students and challenging them, so now we're really looking at them and how can we push them even further. really reviewing our resources and our supports for our high needs population. So working with Ms. Ryan, as well as working with our Title I grant, working with the principals to identify that population and how can we get those students some extra support. And then looking at the Common Core and then the implementation of the next generation science standards. And then what's next? So the state, as far as what's our district testing for the spring of 2016. Well, once again, we're going to give Park for grades 3 through 8. We will have the choice, though, I believe, and we will have a conference call next week with the state, that we might be able to opt for paper-based instead of computer-based at grades of 7 and 8. So it will be a conversation that the leadership team with Ms. Bennett is really going to have to see if that's something that we want to look at. I'm not sure we're going to want to go that way, only in the sense that the state is saying that all testing by 2019 should be computer-based. So that's one decision we're going to have to make. The district will continue to be held harmless, which means we'll continue with our level 2 status. We cannot drop status. We were held harmless this year because we opted for Park last year, and so we'll be continue to have that. However, after this spring, the state is changing, and so for the spring of 2017, the state is now moving to next generation MCAS. So what that is that is going to be a combination of both Park questions and questions specifically designed for Massachusetts. We're going to continue with the current science and technology, and once again, we will be held harmless. And in addition, they want us to be computer-based by 2019, which will be very, very difficult. I do know come budget time, the principals are really having a lot of conversations about that because we don't have laptop carts. Here we have 2 computer labs. How do you get 450 students when you have 50 computers in the short window of testing? And that was the reason why we went paper-based at the elementary schools last year anyway. So that's going to be a topic of conversation. We are going to remain a member of the Park Consortium so that we can continue to compare ourselves to Park states, which will be interesting because our test will be Park and Massachusetts combined, and we're going to compare to only Park. As well as the commissioner is going to convene a group of teachers in higher ed to really look at the content, the length, the time of year for scheduling, as well as how we're testing our students with disabilities, our English language learners, and then the topic of conversation will be, are we bringing a history MCAS back on the table, and will we then start to test students in history as well? I know that was just so riveting. Any questions? None. Fantastic.
Madam Chair, can I ask a question? And really for the I think the public at home, I was just wondering, you mentioned how different the questions are, Jen. I know in the past they've released the questions, the MCAS questions, like a year later, so maybe parents can look at that and see how they're different. Do they plan on doing that for Park questions as well?
They've released a couple, but you can go on to the Park website, and there are sample tests at every single grade level, and and you can see the difference in the type of questions right on the sample tests.
Okay, thank you.
So I guess I do have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So if Massachusetts is going to adopt this combined test, does that mean Massachusetts is still staying with a Common Core, or we're doing something different combined?
So Massachusetts has its own state standards,
Right.
and when we adopted the Common Core, we continued with some of our state standards from our previous standards that are specific to the state of Massachusetts. So it's really kind of testing those in addition to the Common Core.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Also, just to clarify, Ms. Belleville, you mentioned at the beginning of your presentation that we're working with high-needs students who have been designated in a high-needs category,
Yeah.
and that's not our designation. We don't.
Nope.
We don't label students in any way.
No.
Could you walk us through how the state
Sure.
identifies categories?
So the state identifies high needs as low income, Title I, students with disabilities, and English language learners, as well as minorities. So it's the state categorization. For us, our biggest population would be our Title I, our special ed, and then we have a small population of ELL students.
And that's typical. Every district has that subgroup pulled out with specific targets where they need to meet, close the achievement gap.
Yes.
For those kids.
And for us, they give us data on some of our subgroups. The problem is you have to have a certain number of students in each subgroup to get that data. So in third grade, we don't have enough ELL students to get a subgroup of just ELL students. We might have a large enough special ed population or a Title I population that we can pull them out, or low-income students. And really, we're just looking at the number. So, go ahead.
Is there any benefit to the system to take some of those students who might be the highest achievers and get them even higher, right? So certainly there's a benefit to take those that aren't achieving and get them to a standard, right?
Yeah.
But is there a benefit not only to the student and the community or to society, but to the school system to raise those that are high to a higher level?
So I would tell you that we'd want them to be raised to higher level. But as far as the state giving us any type of benefit, there is none. Once you hit proficiency, there's a formula, and you get 100 points for a student once they hit proficient. So it doesn't matter if you are proficient by 1 point over that benchmark or 100 points over. The state doesn't care. It's the same points for that student. However, from a teaching and instructional standpoint, we're not going to stop and just look at our students that we're trying to get to proficient, because we've really started to identify that we need to be pushing those students even farther, and what more can we offer them. You're welcome. Okay.
Thank you.
I would just share with the committee that Park represents a different target for us. We've had 18 years of an assessment test and data over 18 years that can inform our curriculum and instructional decisions. But now, as we're shifting away from the MCAS to a Park version that will eventually morph into an MCAS 2.0, I think the key is the lesson learned is that I think the mistake is to teach the tests, because the test is changing, and that really robs students of the education they deserve. That instead we need to teach the standards and the frameworks, and allow the tests to show us how well we're doing. Mm-hmm. And too often in districts, I think teachers are motivated and pressured, truthfully, to teach to that test because they're judged by those raw scores, that data at the end. So I think a cultural challenge for every teacher in the state, and certainly something that we're working on in Millbury. But I think that as one of our district goals to really work with data and become more familiar with it, and we do have our own in-house sources of data, we'll be able to continue to measure students against those frameworks as the new MCAS evolves. We don't necessarily need that as our benchmark as they work through the new test assessment. Thank you, Mrs. Belleville. In your packets, I have included a first quarter report from the Assabet Valley Collaborative with programmatic highlights. You will receive a full financial update at our December meeting as one of their quarterly updates. But in terms of programmatic highlights, I would really like to emphasize the breadth and depth of services provided to our students through the collaborative at a very cost-efficient model that they provide to us as a member school. And in addition, the services they provide to our teachers. There are many job-alike groups and professional development opportunities arranged through Assabet Valley Collaborative that we typically would not be able to take on ourselves financially, but through the power of all the member schools, we can deliver a lot of value to our teachers. I know that this is a paper copy, but there are embedded links, so I will email you the actual digital copy so that you could explore the links in here that provides a little bit more information to you about the programmatic offerings. And before I move on to my next item in my report, I also wanted to go back to the safety drill that was held at Elmwood last month and how well that went. On the heels of that safety drill, the administration and our school resource officer held a parent information night really to debrief what happened in the drill and also to talk about some of the principles that we've been working with kids around in terms of school safety, and should there be an active threat in our building, what we would do, and introduce the curriculum to parents. And it's really something that it is very important as part of my school safety vision, that parents are partners, and that I don't want parents to be surprised and to hear this, after the fact necessarily. So they did a terrific job. Mr. Burke and Mr. Hall led this with Officer Nikki Oliveri. And if you didn't get a chance to see it, it was taped, and it's on the Elmwood School website. Or if you follow me on Twitter, I'd be happy to tweet that out for you. It's very well done, very comprehensive, very user-friendly, and gives a nice overview of what we're doing in a very age-appropriate way to make sure our youngest students are safe. And Madam Chair, as you know, we have developed a big idea plan in terms of addressing the needs and deficits of our athletic fields, both in terms of safety, but also in terms of quality of playing space and where our fields are located. And as you know, this was presented at a previous school committee meeting, and now I'd like to invite our athletic director, Mr. Pat Mara, to come up and talk about next steps, bridging the gap between sort of a general idea of what we'd like in terms of our facilities to a more granular step-by-step in terms of first phase and what that would look like. So I'd like to invite Pat to the podium.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for your flexibility with moving last night's meeting. I think we can all say it was probably pretty worth it. And good luck to the girls on Saturday at 10 a.m. at Milford High School versus Medway High School. So today, Greg just asked me to come and provide kind of an overview of the proposed athletic field renovation, the work we've already done with Gale Associates, and kind of the steps moving forward to kind of realize some of these thoughts. So as we presented to the school committee a couple of months ago, worked with Gale Associates to develop a master plan. That was a preliminary stage, a rough estimate of what the deficiencies were in our athletic facilities, and now we have kind of learned from that as to what we need to do to move forward. Once we kind of embark on this process moving forward, it's important to note that it kind of is broken down into phases as well, and it's all relative to how much and when we can move forward with such phases. So the first phase is a site survey and schematic layout. This would be the proposed first step for us to take action for the master plan, use that information that Gale has given us, and take steps towards actually realizing some of these thoughts. This would cost $11,700 to execute. We do have members of the Booster Club in the audience tonight, and they are going to present the school committee in the school with a $6,000 donation to offset half the cost of that in efforts to move phase one forward with Gale Associates so that we can begin the process of really taking some concrete, solid steps to get some of these fields and athletic facilities taken care of. So that will happen. Phase one does consist of that site survey and schematic layout. I think some of the important things with that, speaking with Gale and speaking with other schools that have done this, is not only will that give us a more concrete finding of what actually is needed, what our site has for limitations in terms of wetlands, drainage, ledge, things of that nature, but also it will give us a more complete cost variance. Plus or minus 10% is where they can get it after they do this initial phase. And that was really powerful information to kind of move forward, especially with the Booster Club, so that they can go out and raise more significant funds privately, so that this project can continue to move forward, not just on the shoulders of the town and the committee. So it's our goal that, should this phase be accepted and move forward, that we can go ahead and do that, get ourselves into a position where we can then take more specific plans, more specific costs to private donors and try to raise more of the funds for this project. and conversely also trying to raise funds for the Phase 2 and Phase 3 of the planning process, which is more specific, actually, design, specific, kind of getting ready to have construction level documents prior to construction level services. So really the goal here is to take the first step in the process, and this process is something that's going to take some time, and obviously I think we know that, but something that we think and feel, not only as an athletic department but as a booster club as well, that it's an important step to take, now, as we can get this site survey done prior to the winter, which will allow us then to raise some auxiliary funds in the winter and potentially now be able to move forward as soon as kind of snow breaks in March and April, as we move forward with the planning process and as we try to raise some significant funds as we move forward here. So I appreciate your time, and I'm willing to answer any questions or anything like that. Hopefully I've provided some information enough as to show that there is concrete steps that need to be taken, and that we, the Booster Club and the athletic department are in this for the long haul, and we're here to, to see this project through from beginning to end.
Can you tell us the other phases?
Sure. So the second phase is the permitting and development of the bid-ready documents. So the permitting is, speaking to the town commissioner and the wetlands and in those type of auxiliary conversations, developing the bid-ready documents, and that's actually where the design of the plan comes into place. So now, currently, we have an aerial, and we have, those nice little pictures that we showed. Those are great, and those are really eye-popping, and it's like, yes, I want that, and that's really nice. We don't know if our site has any constraints that will allow us or will disallow us not to do something like that. So as we get into that more, the bid-ready documents and the planning of it, after that site survey, it will give us some more information to be able to do that. And that's where the planning and actual design of how the facility will look, where will it fit, what could we do to increase seating and, entryways and parking, and all of those conversations have to happen. And then the third phase is actually the release and awarding of the bid project. So that would kind of be where we feel comfortable to in terms of a funding place, where we'd be able to release the bids and get back construction level bids and go through the bid selection process with Rick and do our due diligence with the 45 days and the procurement and all those things of that nature. And then the last phase would be the construction level services, and that would be during construction, and those costs would be associated or built into the actual bid documents so that they could continue to be with us through the construction services as we move forward, so that someone that helped us start sees us through, so that there's some continuity between beginning the process and as the process kind of unfolds and how the ebbs and flows of things like that go, so they can be with us through that.
In a perfect world, what would be opening day?
Great question. So in my head, and I don't know if Mr. Myers is gonna like this or not.
You're on TV. Go ahead.
Yeah, why not, right? In a perfect world, I think that we can get the ball rolling now. We solicit some private donors, really get some momentum. I think the town meeting in May of 2017 would be something that we would potentially feel comfortable asking for resources from the town, in conjunction with the resources that we've gone. I think that would allow us to potentially begin construction March of 2018, and then, potentially because of our site constraints and the fact that Wendell Field doesn't have a school associated with it, I think that allows us some flexibility. Begin construction in March at Wendell, come back to the high school after graduation, so there's less disruption to the school environment. And then I would love to play our first, home football and soccer triple header, September 6th, 2018. Be there. We'll probably play Auburn. And we'll win. So that's a very, obviously something I've thought about, but not necessarily spoken to everyone about and making sure.
So that would be ideal if the survey comes back with no contingencies that would force us to change our master plan. That would be if our permitting process goes smoothly. That's if we are able to get a combination of private and public funding through a town vote to proceed. And so there are some key benchmark dates that we need to hit, but we can't hit any of them until we start the survey, and the survey can't happen when there's snow on the ground. So I think now is our window of opportunity to get the ball rolling. And if we do miss this window of opportunity, then there's going to be a delay where the Booster Club could be doing a lot of work with some pretty detailed plans to solicit some interest from private donors.
And I do want to say we have a tremendous amount of dedicated people on the Booster Club, which shows tonight that they're here at the meeting and willing to give a donation and show that their hard work. And that's the, as they'll say in, a couple minutes, this is the first check that they'd like to present. It's certainly not the last. And they're going to be with us through this process. And we have a lot of dedicated individuals that really care about not only, Millbury as a town, but the student athletes and, everyone that could benefit from such a project. And I appreciate their support. And I'd like to publicly say thank you to them. And, I think this isn't going to happen without a sincere effort from everyone. And I appreciate that already. So thank you.
So the site survey and the schematic layout, that if say you did hit a glitch, that doesn't expire, right? You can work with that, and if you had to delay, it's still good.
Absolutely, and that's one of the first questions that we asked, because we didn't want to spend X amount of dollars and not have that be available or readily available to us for the life of the project. Okay. If you were to do a site survey, that site survey is with you for the life of the site until it is altered. So if it were 2015, 2017, or 2022, that survey would be available and usable for our purposes.
Very good.
Madam Chair, just a couple of notes. First of all, I want you to know, so this proposal is, Pat did a great job outlining all the phases, but we are getting ourselves to the starting gate, so we're not breaking ground or anything yet. That'll be the next step. So, but I also want to emphasize, too, we've done the master plan with Gale Associates that was really a two-way street. I mean, they did some fact-finding for us. They talked to us. They came back and forth. This phase is the same thing. So as they find things out, they're going to be going to Pat. They're going to be going to the administration to find out, is this your intention? What are prices that you're looking at? So as they find out information that might be an opportunity for us or, an obstacle, they're going to be talking with us and coming back and forth. So it's not like we're going to issue a purchase order and then look for a final report. So I think it's going to be an ongoing report that we're going to be talking with them and the boosters throughout the whole process. The second point is I just want to let you know we're doing on our end some fact-finding. In fact, today we were at Shepherd Hill looking at their project and talking to the AD there as well as the school business manager. They recently completed a project much like we're going to be doing. So we've compiled some notes and got some good ideas about that. So we're going to continue to do that with other projects that have been done successfully in the neighborhood, and I think that's going to help us moving forward.
Very good.
And if I could just comment, that Shepherd Hill model is a good one to follow because they were able to combine private and public support for a first phase there that went quite well. In a town that I think they don't have resources to spare. So I thought they were very creative in how they approached that piece.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So that's not next year's town meeting, it's the town meeting after?
Right.
Not next year's town meeting, it's the town meeting after? Is that what we have on financial planning committee? Don't we have it for next year?
For 17? I thought we had it for 17,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
So, Madam Chair, before I close my report, I know Mr. Bedard is going to discuss accepting a donation from the Booster Club, and I would like to have a photo op so that we can make sure that it's in the paper to demonstrate to the town that this is a partnership and that we're going to be working together moving forward on this. I don't want to catch the town off guard with a big project and a big vote. I want to keep them informed every step of the way and to let them know that this is going to be a private-public partnership along the way. So I think we have a big check that we want to use. It's going to be on the front page of the Chronicle. But before we do that, I know, just to close my report, I know there have been articles in the Telegram and Gazette recently about the public records law in Massachusetts, and specifically how, not intentionally, but through innocent oversight, there are many town agencies, boards of selectmen, school committees, who are not necessarily reviewing their executive session minutes and releasing them to the public when appropriate on a regular schedule. And I just wanted to share with you that we are doing that on a regular schedule, that we are complying with open records law. We did conduct that review at the beginning of the year, and we voted on which ones were appropriate to release and which ones were still sensitive and had to be kept, and we'll do that annually moving forward.
Okay, so now we'll move on to budget. Mr. Bedard.
Yes, well, I guess I have the joy of accepting the money. I think I'd like to let Mr. Mara do that because it might be more appropriate for that. But as you know, and maybe the folks at home don't know, anytime we accept as a school committee a donation, we have to formally accept that. So that's what we're going to do tonight. We have the boosters here, and then I have another donation that came in that I'd like to do after that. But Mr. Mara, if you could do that for us, I'd appreciate that.
Where do you want
So my vision is that we could arrange the entire school committee, members of the Booster Club and Mr. Mara, and if we could have the check front and center, and I'll take a few photos for the paper.
We should really motion and accept it first.
Should I get up?
Yeah.
Can we motion and accept it first?
Yes, let's
Yeah.
accept it first. Say yes.
Little bit of
I
semantics,
think
sorry.
we'll all fight to make that motion. But
Okay.
I will make that motion.
Second.
Sorry, Sue.
Of course you
I
did.
didn't even ask
still
for the
blinded by
motion
that.
yet, Sue. Okay, could I have a motion to accept the Booster Club check for $6,000?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
That's 401.
Thanks, Kevin.
You're welcome.
Yeah, sure.
Greg, why don't I take it? You can.
I can take it.
I'm assuming Greg undersitting this button several times, so just keep smiling, and you'll find one that he likes. Okay, you should have enough there.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, we appreciate your support. Thank you, Sue.
My daughter takes pictures of the dog.
No, I just wanted to.
You're just looking at you, though. That's a lot better. I don't look good.
Well, I never took my glasses off, right? I never took my glasses off, so I'm getting. Oh my gosh,
She's gonna delete them all and then go, uh-oh.
Wait a minute, we might need to retake, I'm just saying. I had my glasses on.
Peter's gonna crop Rick right out. He's doing that far out.
What happened, my eyes are closed?
It's all about Sue.
It's all about me right now.
Don't delete my daughter's birthday photo.
I'm not.
First
I'm not
communion's
going
in
any
there,
further,
come
like
on.
I said. I'm a little worried. Let's get rid of that one though.
I'm not afraid. You look.
Is it the one?
So, well, no, it's not the
So
one.
much fun.
Okay, you've narrowed
I've narrowed it
those are the ones. You know, whichever one you pick, she's going to say, not that one. That one. So my daughters take pictures of each other, just, you know, hanging out, yeah, doing whatever. There's pictures of the dog in there, everything. Yeah. Random shots of.
Thank you.
That's why I was afraid to go any further.
a lot of work.
What kind of random shots would be on there?
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Hockey game.
Well, good luck.
Good luck. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. Good day.
Thank you.
And it'll get used more.
Oh, that.
I'm still trying to wrap my head around the time.
I want to give the big one to Denise Marble, see what she does with that.
Well, she sent it to me before. Said she had to leave at 7:15.
2017.
Are we on camera right now?
I don't know, ask Kevin.
Just saying.
Well, Leslie wasn't in the picture, that's all.
Yeah, she had to
Okay.
leave. Okay, so, Rick, are you ready to proceed with B?
Yes, yes. So the second donation we have is a $500 donation from Jeffrey and Laura Waxman. And this couple actually gave a donation last year to Mr. Bresnahan for the student incentive program that goes into the student activity account. So they're doing it again this year. And it's kind of like the high school PBIS system that Mr. Bresnahan has there. So it goes into the student activity account, and he uses that for incentive for kids. So I think it's a great donation. They've donated again this year. So I recommend that we vote to accept that.
If I could have a motion to accept the donation of $500 from Jeffrey and Laura Waxman?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And that's 4-0.
Thank you.
And if we could write a letter to the Waxmans?
And to the Booster Club.
Yes.
Okay, the next is the revolving account.
Yes,
Update.
and you have an update in your packet, which is through the end of October. It's the revolving account summary from the beginning of July, really for the first quarter through the end of October. Go through a couple of highlights, and certainly if you have any questions. 4 of the accounts, and I'd just like to go over this because it helps defray the cost of our budget. The Dorothy Manor revolving account, which is Fund Code 503, as well as the Elmwood School pre-K account, and the non-residential tuition account, and the 4th one is the aftercare program, all help defray the cost of our budget. The Dorothy Manor account, we use some of the rental money from that to pay some of our maintenance and grounds folks. The preschool revolving account, we help pay for preschool teachers. The non-residential revolving account, that's from tuition coming in from a student out of district that pays in. So that money comes in, and then we help pay for instructional staff for that. And then the aftercare program, in addition to the salaries for the aftercare employees, but we also pay part of the custodial staff in the 2 buildings, Shaw and Elmwood. A portion of their custodial salaries come out of that account, so that helps defray the cost of that. So that's ongoing, and money comes out of that through the course of the year to pay for those salaries. Most of the revolving accounts you see there are fairly consistent. You can from year to year. The Dorothy Manor revolving account, we have used that for maintenance and expenditures for Dorothy Manor School. The agreement we have, which is actually out to bid right now for a new 5-year lease, right now Packagug Acres is there, and they're there through the end of June, so there's a new lease that I'll have something for you next month on that. Hopefully, they stay with us. They pay in rental receipts for that. They take care of the minor repairs, things like that, but if there's a boiler issue, a door needs to be replaced, the fire alarms aren't working, major structural things, we take care of that. So we've done some of that work, and the current balance right now in that account is $93,427. But I would like to note that the last inspection by the fire department, they would like us to put some fire-rated doors downstairs in the cellar near the boiler room to kind of section off and compartmentalize that area. So we've gotten quotes on that, and we'll be doing that very shortly to take care of that. So that's per the fire chief, we want to take care of that. And then the next one under that, the preschool revolving account, as I said, it's got a balance right now of $130,456, but really the salaries of those instructional teachers haven't really taken hold there yet. So as the year goes on, you'll see more and more being taken out of there. A couple down is the athletic revolving account, and as you can see, it has a balance of $48,574. And as I mention every time I do this report, you don't see any expenditures now, but as Mr. Mara knows, a lot of the expenditures are taken out at the end of the year for that. So a lot of the expenditures for that are in the fourth quarter towards the end of the year. So you see receipts coming in, but you don't see expenditures. So although it looks high right now, it might not be that high at the end of the year. And aside from that, the school lunch revolving account, you can see that's up from the start of the year. So that's right now the school lunch revolving account is $107,215. The Department of Education always recommends that you hold about 2 or 3 months worth of income in there. So 2 or 3 months of income for us is about $100,000 to $150,000. So they recommend to balance that of that amount to cover the startup at the beginning of the school year for things like, you're paying before you're receiving lunch money. You're actually started your expenditures, and for any, thing that might come up with equipment. As you know, a couple of years ago, we did a freezer, and those things are $30,000 or $35,000. So they say you should have a little bit of a nest egg for those equipment purchases. They never ask us for that when they need to purchase something that doesn't come out of an annual town meeting warrant article, anything like that. That comes out of their budget. So that's why there's a balance there. And in fact, there's a couple of dishwasher issues I'm working on right now that'll bring that down. So that I expect that balance of $107,000 to come down once those repairs are done. So if you have any questions, certainly answer those.
Can we just clarify 506, that's not anything to do with school choice? That's so it's not tuition we're taking in from students who are choosing in. I think it's special education kids who are using services that Millbury can provide?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Just so that nobody thinks we're school
Yes.
choice.
Yeah, there's no school choice revolving account, and there's no school choice funds coming in.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. And kind of related to that, because when I went over the beginning of the school year, the beginning of the fiscal year, the July 1st revolving accounts with Ms. McKenna at Town Hall, she sent me a report of all the school revolving accounts, and what we discovered on there is there's an old revolving account entitled the Parents Club. Old, obsolete. I had never used it in the 7 or 8 years I've been here. I think it's been sitting there idle for many years. And as you know, the Parents Club is now its own 503c3. It's its own organization. It's a nonprofit. So they have their own checking account. They're completely separate from the school department right now. But what we have is funds that were left there from many years ago that the Parents Club had. So it was originally received with the intention for the Parents Club. So we recommend that we turn over and close out that revolving account and give that to the Parents Club. The total balance right now is $7,643.23. So we recommend the school committee vote to distribute that to the Parents Club, the Millbury Parents Club, and dissolve that account. And as you know, that once we do that those funds will come back to us with bus trips and field trips and things like that anyway. So It's money well spent, and right now it's just sitting there and we can't spend it. So I think it's prudent to do that.
Okay. So if I could have a motion to return to the Parents Club $7,643.23 and dissolve the account.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
That's 4-0.
All right, thank you.
Just have one other item, Madam Chair.
Sure.
Okay. Just, I want to clarify something. I think it was, when we were talking about the Shaw School with the selectmen a couple of weeks ago, I just want to clarify something because I kind of read it in the Chronicle and I wanted to make sure people understood that. Somewhere in the conversation, we talked about natural gas and converting this building to natural gas. Right now, it's number 2 heating fuel. And I just read in the paper, it said something about the natural gas line goes by the school. And I want to clarify that when it goes by the school, it's not literally by the parking lot here. It's on Elmwood Street.
Right.
Okay, it's not, so, so if we needed to get natural gas here, it'd be from Elmwood. Or I've also found out, it's at the mall. And I've talked to Eversource, and it might be closer to get it with an easement from the mall than from there. But the line just doesn't run right by the school, so it wouldn't be as easy as that. I just want to make sure everybody understood that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we'll move on to old business, and we have the second reading and therefore the approval of the restraint policy that Ms. Ryan presented 2 weeks ago. Does anyone have any questions or discussions regarding restraint policy? Okay, if I could have a motion to accept that policy?
So moved.
And a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
That's 4-0. Excuse me. Okay, now we'll move into new business, and I have a disclosure. My daughter has applied to be a substitute teacher here in the school system. So as required by Mass General Law, as an elected official, I'll be filing a conflict of interest with the town clerk. So if anyone needs to read it, it's here. It'll be with Jane. And then we'll move on to the wellness policy. Mr. Myers.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to open up with the committee and share a recommendation from the Millbury Board of Health. Specifically, I attended a Board of Health meeting 2 weeks ago, and the topic of conversation was the effort by the Board of Health to make sure that our first responders in town were trained and equipped to administer Narcan, which is a medication used to reverse the effects of an overdose. So I as part of the conversation, they asked if the school department would be interested in having future conversations about being included in this town efforts to make sure that first responders and the school would then have Narcan and training to administer Narcan in the event that it should be needed on school property. And I think that's a conversation that many schools in the area are having. Opioid overdose is an epidemic. It's something that addiction is something that is becoming widespread, and I think the state is scrambling to provide services for families to be able to work through issues of addiction. But in the meanwhile, people are losing their lives through these overdoses. And I think that my recommendation would be to explore what this might look like. It would require a change to our wellness policy. So there would be model language that I could provide to you from MASC, and we would have obviously 2 readings, but then have a larger conversation about the role that the school might play in terms of combating this epidemic. I see it along the lines of having a fire extinguisher in school. Having a fire extinguisher in school doesn't mean that the school might burn down, but it means that we're prepared. And so having Narcan in the school does not mean that we condone or promote the use of addictive drugs. It means that, God forbid, if someone should overdose, we will be prepared, and we're going to save that life and then provide those services for the family and for the whoever might be involved to make sure that they can get on the road to recovery. Mm-hmm. This is something that Senator Moore is deeply involved in also to support his districts, to make sure that he can link families up with agencies and services that can help them work through this. And to build on that, he would like to partner with the Millbury Public School District in March to hold an informational session where several agencies from the area and from Worcester could be available to meet with parents and discuss options, meet with the community at large, not just parents, from across his district to discuss, what options and resources are available for families who may be struggling with a member who's dealing with addiction. So if I could get a sense from the committee, if you'd like to explore the recommendation from the Board of Health to look at a policy change that would include training our nursing staff and having Narcan available on school property. Obviously, the question that I would want to make sure it gets answered is, we have a school resource officer who's already trained, and she would be the first responder in the case of any event like this. But if she were not available, then we would have someone who is trained and would be able to administer the Narcan and proceed with that protocol. So I guess my next step is, if it would be, if the committee's interested, I could present you with some model language that we could consider for the policy change at our next meeting and have a discussion around that.
I think so. I think it's a sign of the times, and I think it's being proactive.
And it's proven to work, so why would you not do it? So,
Yeah, and although it's a step that I hate to have to take,
Right.
our first job is to keep kids safe, and that's all kids, so
Right.
God forbid if something happened and we weren't trained.
Right.
so please.
So I will, at the next meeting, I'll have some model language for the committee to consider.
Great. Is there any other new business anyone would like to bring up? Oh,
I would.
Gianna.
Letting you guys know, I'd like to invite you guys to the National Honor Society induction ceremony. It is this Monday at 6:30 in the high school auditorium.
Okay.
And I just want to let you guys know that you're invited.
Well, thank
Very
you.
welcome.
Thank you very much.
Very welcome.
Okay.
Do we have to vote on the interest-based bargaining?
No, we're going to
Oh,
table that.
that's
till-
tabled.
till the second. Okay, so our next meeting will be December 9th, 2015. We'll start with a tour of the high school at 6:30 and then meet in the media center at 7 p.m. And if I could have a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
A second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
That's 4-0. Thank you very much, everyone. Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.